ask you why you wear the war paint. Ultimate, or should I call you Ultimate or Warrior? How should I? Why?
Those that have made small sacrifices call me UW, but those that have made no sacrifices must call me the Ultimate Warrior.
Okay, and where does this come from?
This faceplate is for communication with the warriors. As I lock eyes with a warrior that has his face painted, and the outer edges of this faceplate interlock with each other, then I know that that warrior is ready to make that sacrifice so that I shall live.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, man.
This is our Dueling Ultimate Warrior series. This is part 2 in this series that we wanted to talk about. This was the Dark Side of the Ring version, called Becoming Warrior, which, like I told you, that the A&E went a little darker and deeper than I thought, but I had a feeling Dark Side of the Ring would have went a little deeper, and they absolutely did.
Yeah.
First thoughts is the whole time, for at least 75% of it, it felt very similar to, I don't want to call it a hit piece, but it definitely had the very similar to feel to the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD. I felt like Jim Ross was very comfortable shooting on the Warrior in this.
Yeah, he was gleeful too.
Yeah, because I mean, make no mistake about it, Jim Cornette has zero issues shooting on people. Yeah. So he was right at home. But
he loves to cut a promo on people.
Yeah, I just feel like Jim Ross, he's a very positive guy. I met him. He's the same guy that you see in person. He's like that in the back. He does feel like he will watch out for you. So for him to feel comfortable with just telling it like it was, he felt like he had no reason to hold back anymore. He did, but still, again, 2 thumbs up for sure on this documentary.
It was good. I gotta say, I can see why A&E wanted to jump ahead of them. I think I found A&E's documentary overall a little more, I guess, fulfilling, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It just felt like a more complete piece. This felt kind of short to me. I thought we could have done a Warrior 2-parter.
It felt rushed.
But still good. But I don't know. I kind of wanted more from them.
Yeah, I feel like both did cover his time as the Blade Runners, which was the very first time I saw him with Sting.
Yeah.
Right? He was the original Rock, Sting and Rock.
Yeah.
Jerry Jarrett discovering them. They both got into their Power Team USA. You know, they both covered that well. What Darkseid covered a little bit more was basically the narcissism that they claimed that he had, which I don't feel like A&E touched on that much, where you just saw that you didn't realize it. It's just like he really was the equivalent of his ring entrance, where he kind of skyrocketed to the top.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I feel like watching, because I was a fan back then, and again, it was pre-internet, so you were following along basically through the magazines, right, through the After magazines, and, if you got lucky on some syndication. Because I remember him as Blade Runners, and I remember him showing up in World Class as the Dingo Warrior. I didn't realize how fast those really were.
Yeah.
So it really was a quick, right place, right time, right look, at the time of growing that, and how that could affect your ego.
Sure. It happens to anybody, right? Instant fame, instant stardom. And I guess it's not instant, but really 5 years from starting to being the top of the heap is extremely fast.
Yeah, considering that, Jim Ross didn't make it to WWE for 20 years, right? And just like, or even like more modern day Kevin Owens, he grinded it out.
Yeah.
Warrior wasn't grinding it out on the indies. He did. It sounds like he did the Sting, and they lived in their car and were making no money. Memphis was known for making no money.
Yeah.
So they did hit on that. But again, when he was the Dingo Warrior in World Class, David Manning, friend of mine, actually, really good guy. And if he says something, you can take it to the bank. He's one of the few people in pro wrestling that is just like, wow, you're a really good person.
Yeah.
For him to say that, he was already having ego issues then, was just like, oh, okay. I feel like that was covered more in Dark Side than it was in the A&E one.
Yeah.
You know, when he was a Dingo Warrior body guy. You know, the chicks loved the body guys in WCW. I mean, WCCW, sorry. But they did cover that well. And then they did, Eric Bischoff, he was part of the Dark Side one, but was he part of the A&E one? I feel like he wasn't.
I don't recall him being on it.
No.
They didn't cover any of his WCW time on the A&E doc. So.
No, and it's probably for the best. Like I said, he's probably more known just for his trapdoor actually hurting Bulldog's back.
Yeah.
Was probably the biggest pop. As far as like that run went.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Eric Bischoff pointing out his promos, nonsensical at best. But I think that was his character, so I don't really hold him to. I don't hold that against him. Because it's just like you saw this guy is going to be the superhero merchandising machine. You know, Vince is going to strap a rocket to his back. You know, and he fit in perfect for that time, right?
Sure.
You know, him standing next to Hogan and Macho Man. You know, he was a perfect fit for that company.
Yeah.
The thing that really got me that was not covered in either of these, and we've spoke about this before, is just like, you know, Bobby Heenan not being a fan of him, and I didn't realize that. He actually had, you know, I do remember the Heenan stuff when he had to wrestle Heenan, and then if Bobby Heenan lost, he had to put him in like a weasel outfit. I remember seeing those on like primetime wrestling, but he didn't take care of Bobby Heenan's neck, and we talked about this in Brian Pillman's doc when Heenan flipped out on the air because he had hurt his neck because he was a bumping machine. So Warrior kind of hurt his neck and didn't really care.
Yeah,
that was a big one, and then the Jake stuff. Jake being Jake, you know, always takes things dark. But basically, you know, he holds it against Warrior in a way that he was going to get that run that he was promised and then didn't because of the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
You know, and Vince literally screaming on him, you know, I'm about to fire Warrior. You have the worst luck. And then for him to basically, I mean, this is 2015, right? It's just like at the Hall of Fame. They're both going in the same time, and he's got a roll of quarters in his pocket. That's old school wrestling right there. That's just like he's gonna settle a debt from a while. So it's like, can you imagine like old man Jake attacking old man Ultimate Warrior with a roll of quarters?
Jeez.
So that was very telling. But I didn't realize how, you know, by that time. I know it kind of jumped ahead. You know, Warrior had already kind of skyrocketed to the top, and this was after the WrestleMania 6 where Hogan put Warrior over big. That was a big deal. Do you remember? I watched that live. Did you watch that live? We talked about that.
I don't remember. I didn't generally get to watch the WrestleManias live. I was in the remember they used to hit HBO or something or Showtime afterwards.
Yeah.
That's usually when I would get around to watch them. You know, my family wasn't a big pay-per-view purchaser. They were no way.
You just had to wait for the Coliseum home video.
Yeah, just had to wait for it to
that.
hit something else.
It was a big deal for Hogan to do it, and then they kind of touched on this where Hogan was a little bit unsure, but like it sounds like once Hogan put him over, and it sounds like he was very in it for himself to make sure he wasn't getting screwed, and the whole yelling at Jake was very off-putting.
Yeah,
if that was true, but it sounds like it's pretty accurate because there was nobody. I feel like Sting was the only one that kind of came to his defense a little bit, but I think Sting was being forgiving because it sounds like even way back then when they were the Blade Runners, he was ready to walk away and kind of leave them hanging, and Sting was the one that went there and tried to do right by them, and you know, Warrior got pissed about that.
Yeah.
So didn't sound like he had a whole lot of fans.
Yeah. I mean, definitely felt to me, no one had anything good to say about the guy. Like you said on the A&E biography, most of the folks that were giving him positive, dropping any positive statements were journalists. You know, you weren't getting any wrestlers saying that, and which is strange to me because I can recall working with people and not getting along with them, and you know, things happening and even fights happening, and you know, if they were dead, I think I'd be apt to just remember the times we did get along.
Yeah.
And it seems like nobody had that to add.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel like, again, they were definitely shooting on him a little bit. And I still feel like they were holding back, even though they weren't really
That's what I'm
holding
saying.
back.
It felt like there could have been more in that dark side. That could have been a two-parter. I think there was a lot. A lot of stuff left on the table there. This is a big character. You would think, because I honestly didn't know much about Brian Pillman until I saw that two-parter documentary, and then Warrior being Warrior. You think that would be worthy of a two-parter, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think it could have. I mean, because his whole conservative motivational speaker career, I think that's the last thing that he was truly remembered for before the Hall of Fame kind of gave him a little bit of a redemption tour.
yeah.
I mean, but that stuff was making mainstream news,
Yeah.
when he was going at it. So I feel like they didn't get too deep into that, because again, this one they really focused on, his ex-wife, that she kind of like sounds like she was one of the victims of his like success that ended
Right.
up, getting divorced. And I guess that one had somewhat of a happy ending because they ended up being friends, and they decided it was best if they went their separate ways, where they weren't even going to be friends anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like she took it easy on him, other than she said that, he was really, it was a lot fast for him.
Yeah. Her big thing was the infidelity. I think that was
Yeah.
that was her main thing. But it was interesting how they had dueling wives, right, on each of the two documentaries.
Yes, exactly. I guess the A&E felt a little bit more positive, just because I like the angle of showing that at the minimum his two daughters are kind of going to live by the ideals that he showed in front of the camera, rather versus the stuff that he may have been harboring behind the scenes. I mean, obviously the warrior character, not the warrior, the person. The warrior character was kind of like always believe in yourself and never stop. And it looks like his daughters are going to take that ideal versus some of maybe his conservative ideals that got him a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And I think it did kind of somewhat of it was very, again, reminding how chilling it was, that it just like to have that speech of every man breathes his last breath. And it kind of gave him a chance to have a redemption of the character itself right before he died.
Yeah.
And then having that part with Jake about Jake, about to hit him with a roll of quarters, and Warrior basically coming to him and disarming him with like a sincere apology, to the point where Jake was taken back by that. And obviously he said he completely disarmed me and didn't know what to do. And I think them having, at the last second, I feel like of his life, he got the people that could have shot on him the hardest, being Jim Cornette and Jake. And they were all like, that's when they were like, whoa. And then like, rest in peace, where they didn't want to say anything more bad anymore.
Yeah.
Because they realized maybe there was something to it. Maybe like at the end of his life, he had, we can quote Jules from Pulp Fiction, that moment of clarity of just like, I need to do right by this.
What did he die of?
A massive heart attack.
Yeah, but I remember that Hall of Fame. He didn't look good.
No.
Something seemed weird.
Something seemed way
to me,
off.
it felt like I was just behind. He's like, oh man, he's got all these old wrestling injuries. You think of that, but I guess he didn't even wrestle for that long. So
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't have a style that would lend to having as much as lumbering as he looked.
Yeah.
He didn't have that style. I mean, even Hogan, who didn't have that style, he dropped a leg drop so many times that obviously he got a fake hit. But even Hogan back in he used to do way more than he did later on.
Yeah.
Where Warrior always kind of kept everything pretty limited. Mm-hmm. So, but he did look really bad. So
did you think both of these documentaries maybe glossed over the steroids angle?
yes.
Because I felt like that was probably a big deal with him. I think A&E hinted at it a little, but they definitely didn't want to linger on it. But I feel like he was probably, I don't know where I'm getting this information, but he was definitely a steroid user sometime as he was bodybuilding. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they touched on that. They
Yeah.
basically said, that he started that in bodybuilding, and he got prescriptions for it back then, and I think that's on part of the trial.
Yeah.
He was a big part of the McMahon steroid trial, which is
Yeah.
going to be one of the episodes they cover later on. He was a big part of that. I don't know if they covered any other excess drugs.
Yeah.
Because you would think, I remember hearing the story of before the WrestleMania 7 match between Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man that they were having a challenge for who can consume the most coffee. And, and the rumor was, they each consumed one of those giant silver cylinders full of coffee. And you can see both of those two human beings and realize that, oh, wow, they're jacked up on something.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that both of them died of a massive heart attack.
Yeah. Colombian coffee, maybe.
Yeah, because there was definitely some additive in there. But yeah, when you would have no surprise that those two amped up characters died of a massive heart attack. I just don't know if there was any other substances that were involved in there. And I would have been curious to hear Macho Man's perspective on this. Unfortunately, we can't, because I feel like they had very similar stories in a way, that they both had a lot of paranoia, both had a lot of like protect your spot. I think Macho Man came up a little bit more gritty than Warrior did.
Yeah.
I feel like Macho Man basically had a fight for every single thing he got.
Yeah.
But then once they both did reach that pinnacle, they were both always kind of like felt very alone.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's a top spot that very few people understand. I remember one of my last matches when Stone Cold was there. It was 98, and I remember him just sitting in his pickup truck in the parking garage drinking beer by himself. And I always thought that's when it was like peak Stone Cold times.
Yeah.
That is just like, he just was by himself. I was just like, maybe just to have that type of superstardom, maybe you do feel alone. I don't know. So, and everybody handles it a little different. Because look, Stone Cold had a lot of dark stuff that people have forgotten about. He's had a lot of arrests and, personal things that actually became public. So I don't want to, who am I to judge, on how people react with this like superstardom that very few people get. I don't know, but this was definitely one of those fast burning stars that were like right place, right time, and it came up fast and then went down fast and just didn't have the same thing. And to get fired, three times by the same person.
Yeah.
So I guess it had the closest to a happy ending that he can get. That dare I say, even Macho Man never really got. He never got that. The happy ending for the fans, it was like versus like the people themselves. Like Bruno Sammartino kind of got that. It's just like there was some kind of redemption that finally they get their recognition, because if they want this Hall of Fame to be legitimate, they do have to recognize the characters themselves versus the people. And that's that could become a very heated debate.
Yeah.
With some of the darker stuff that's happened, with like Snuka or, Benoit. But this stuff is just very opinionated. Like, we talked about it, right? Ultimate Warrior, would he be the one storming the Capitol these days? According to some of those internet videos, yes. Right? But a lot of that stuff kind of got deleted and disappeared from the internet. But there's some gnarly stuff that was out there on his Ultimate Warrior blog when he wasn't with any company.
Yeah.
They only touched on that, but it was definitely some not pro care for your, fellow human being stuff by any stretch, which is not what the Ultimate Warrior the character was about.
Is it a bad take to say maybe he wasn't such a great guy? It's just like, it's hard to, you don't want to speak ill of the dead, and obviously he's a legend in wrestling history, is a huge part of that, but the indication I got between both of these documentaries is maybe he wasn't such a good guy.
That's what it definitely did seem like that. And it stems back to, it looks like he's had some issues with his dad.
Yeah.
He had a lot of self-esteem issues.
Join the club.
And, let's not forget, man. Steroids affect your personality.
Sure.
We heard roid rage. So if you basically, this could have been a stew of all of that.
So yeah, that's what I feel like maybe was the missing ingredient in both of these documentaries, because we did get a sense of him being disliked, and we did get a sense of like how the way he saw things was sort of only out for himself. But the question we didn't get answered, I feel, there is why.
Yeah.
You know, why was he like this? Why did he act like this? Was he really that self-involved? Was he really that selfish? Or was something wrong with him?
Right. Yeah. And we'll never know now. Yeah. But you're right. Maybe there was. I feel like both of them did. You know, they were good. But you're right. There was something deeper there that I think we all felt. But I think everyone's kind of treading, because it is that, you know, do you speak ill of the dead? And does it matter now versus when he was alive? You know, now do you just like kind of leave it be?
Yeah.
Versus like the darkness that kind of maybe lurked within him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll never know now. But like, as far as like, this is it, you know, what we talked about before is like, do you separate the entertainment from the entertainer?
Yeah.
You know, do we look at Ultimate Warrior as just like, we'll just look at that Ultimate Warrior character? Or is it kind of tainted when Warrior, the person?
Yeah.
Does it taint it? And that's any industry, right? Whether it's, you know, actors or musicians that have a lot of these dark issues, the human beings themselves. Like, I don't know. Like, who are we to judge? Is just like listening to music from somebody who had a dark, or you know, to go even darker, of just like that O.J. Simpson, the football player. Like, that's dark, right? Uh-huh. It's just like, that is really dark, dude. Just like that, obviously that taints, you know, not only his history, because, you know, obviously double murder, you know, even though he was acquitted, double murder.
Sure.
And part of that, it just like, it really blew through. I guess that's a little different, because that you don't separate that person, because he wasn't playing a character on the football field.
Yeah.
But wrestling's in that weird spot where it's just like, you have that, or you have the actor who's 100% playing a character, but then you have these wrestlers who are playing a version of themselves. But
Sure.
When you see, you know, when O.J. Simpson's running through the airport, that's O.J. Simpson running through the airport. When Tom Cruise is, it's not necessarily Ethan Hunt or one of his other characters. That's Tom Cruise, where the wrestler
right.
is that person, but it's a character too. So when does the entertainment end and the real person begin? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're never going to get Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just like, I believe O.J. Simpson was taken out of the NFL Hall of Fame, right?
I would think so.
Yeah, I think he's a goner from there. And just like it, you know, the comparison that completely overshadowed everything he done.
Yeah.
But something like this with Ultimate Warrior, just like, he was obviously not a nice person. So does that overshadow everything he's done? But he also came out publicly against a lot of people. So does that overshadow things that, you know, things that he's done? Man, it's some complicated stuff. Like TLDR, I don't know what my opinion is on that. Obviously, it's a little bit more clear when it's O.J. Simpson, Chris Benoit, you know. It's very clear. Yes, that overshadows everything they've done. Just try to move on from that. But like Ultimate Warrior, he hurt a lot of people's feelings, but he didn't hurt people physically.
Yeah.
You know, is that the line?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like he's sort of a controversial figure in a lot of ways, and retro wrestling being on a hot streak right now, people can't get enough of that. I feel like we're going to hear more about Ultimate Warrior eventually.
I don't know if there's going to be any more that's going to come out for. They're running out of people that kind of knew him intimately, that would be able to kind of shine that light on him. I think time is a lot of this stuff is going to be lost to time. He fell on the very fringe of like the internet stuff, so his stuff, his controversial stuff is on the internet.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to hide some of that. So some people are going to know.